depending on the time frame that's handed to us. And there will be a price tag for that study. Just know that everyone's working hard to get to that next level.
So Carl, what's the next step in the budget process now?
I first want to correct a misstatement I made. I think I said school budgets were equivalent to FY94. I meant to say FY 2004. Okay. So that was a 10-year mistake there.
Less scary.
Excuse me.
Welcome to my club.
Time's moving fast.
It's still
Yeah, I looked that up.
years. Be glad it isn't 64.
Next step is we're working together to provide the preliminary budget packet that will come out second meeting of school committee in January. We'll be ahead of schedule with that level of detail at that point, given the fact that we're not looking at the financial appropriation until June. But so in late January, the school committee will have the detail. And I think the next step is for us to keep our ear to the ground. You know, our two primary sources of money are the local sources, you know, all the local revenues, which are assessed and evaluated about twice a month at the finance planning team. Second source of money is state. And once a month, state gets a revenue forecast, and that feeds our Chapter 70 and our local aid. So it appears to me that the level services budget will sit as it is until we start to get better revenue forecasts. Concomitant to that, if this committee wishes, you can ask the school administration to say, well, what would be the impact, more specifically, of a $400,000 cut or a $6,000 cut? And then in that case, the superintendent's staff would begin to put together scenarios.
And we should see House 1 in January, right? Is it mid to late January? And I know people say House 1, it's an early budget, but you know, I've looked back over the years, and a lot of things that come out in the first budget are in the last budget. Now there are changes as you go along, but there's a lot of, in that first budget, there's a lot of things that don't change.
Well, that's the flavor.
Right. You get an idea of where they're leaning, and so while that's far from a final budget, we'll have some indication in mid-January where we stand in terms of, especially if there's a Chapter 70 cut in there and a total local aid cut. Although, you know, Tim Cahill, of course, he's running for governor, but he's saying that lottery revenues are increasing. So, you know, who knows? I'm not buying any lottery tickets. I don't know. For anybody else.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
Right after the next.
Yeah,
You already
right
mentioned.
down the MASC. That'll be a standard thing.
Mass school building.
Sure, Mass School Building. That'll be standard on the agenda. So.
You have an update, Keith, on the MSBA?
We have, the only update I can give you is, you know, I think I told the committee that we'd gotten a communication from Dick Hill about our statements of interest and how the hard copies hadn't gotten in.
Well, that was finance planning.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. The hard copies of the statement of interest that Dr. Troden has sent in November went to the wrong address. It went to the address we had, but they have moved and they were not forwarded. So we've
Post office doesn't forward.
Yeah, we've been trying to track down the original packet, but it being the time of year it is, you know, the post office probably is not looking for a manila envelope with no distinguishing characteristics. So we got another copy of the plan. We got all the signatures we needed. We gave it to UPS and overnighted it, and it was supposed to be delivered at before 4:30 this afternoon, and I will call Dick Hill's office tomorrow and make sure that it has gotten there. But because of that, we haven't gotten any information on the meeting with MSBA for our feasibility study. And until they get the signature pages and everything done, we're in a holding pattern right now.
All right. Anything else on that?
Have we set up a meeting at the secondary school building?
We're gonna, if we have that information on whichever meeting in January we have that information, we'll go with.
Okay.
So, the next item, large capital expenditure. Carl?
Thank you. As the committee knows, we try to maintain a continual 5-year lookout at large capital, and we are asking the school committee to review the FY11 requests. And the items that appear in FY11 are those that were forecast to have been needed in FY11, so it takes kind of an individual look. Do you have an extra copy in your packet?
I probably do, yes.
Give one to Don. Look on together. So when you look under the FY11 column, the first item that appears is a technology number, $60,882. That shouldn't be a surprise to the committee because that is the third year of the 3-year lease we have with Dell Computer. We were very upfront about informing the selectmen and other financial leaders that we were entering into a 3-year lease agreement with Dell. So we would be recommending consideration for the third year payment out of large capital in the amount shown, $60,882. And Madam Chair, what I will do is just pause on those in the FY11 column unless you'd like to review of each number.
No, just what's moving forward.
Okay. Now, number 17 on page 2 is a large number. And
Big number.
If we cut expenses another 5%, can
we fund
come up
that?
with that? Or?
Yeah.
Again, this was what the committee had directed us to include in FY11 a couple years ago, and I think many of the listings in this large capital are the school administration's attempt to inform the committee and the public of various very large capital items facing us in the next few years unless we take action. For example, if we were not going to consider building a new secondary school for 10 years, I think we would be here very aggressively recommending a lot of large capital items. And so in the spirit of that viewpoint, that's why you see a $70 million item for a new facility.
Mm-hmm.
And
But Carl, I think it's fair to say, obviously, because you have 70 million here and then 20 million for middle school,
yes.
it's fair to say that, we really don't, I think Rockland's project that just came in at 84 million, I believe, for both a similar project. I think they're getting about 58%. They're getting the top reimbursement they can get from the state, I believe. Others have come in a little lower. So I think it is fair to say that 70 to 90 million is not a crazy number to have in this budget to project the potential. And of course, the goal would be that we would not foot the majority of those costs, that we'd hopefully get reimbursement that would be more than 50% based on some of the things that we're looking at, being a model system and a model school and green school, etc. So I just want to point out, especially for the press, that and those watching, that while 90 million is in here, that's not a number we know for sure, but it's also not a crazy number that we just picked out of the air somewhere that we're throwing in here.
Right. And the other interesting thing, and I know Kyle's going to go through them, but just about every single major capital request here is related to the middle school.
Right.
For repairs that need to be done at some point in time if in fact we don't proceed with some type of a major project.
Right.
Yes, that's true. And remember the context of this discussion. The town administrator is asking for recommendations from the committee and the superintendent early January. So this discussion we're having, hopefully will have an outcome of your formal endorsement of some articles. Moving down the line, you go just as to number 25, as you mentioned, Jerry. You may recall when Wayne Hardacre was here a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the carbon dioxide heightened levels in the middle school. Hasten to add, those heightened levels are not unhealthful levels, but they're levels higher than are recommended in today's more modernly engineered air handling systems. He does CO2 readings in classrooms, and here in the middle school, they're higher than we'd like to see them, and that is because of the air handling equipment, the quiet one behind you that normally would be spewing some heat. That's called a univentilator. and that univentilator across are just engineered very differently in this building, this 50-year-old building. And we are putting out for consideration, we asked, Superintendent asked Wayne to provide him an estimate for what it would cost to rebuild, not replace, but to rebuild with new motors, new pneumatic devices, new belts, new filters, clean up, anyway. And the number that he came back with was about $100,000 to rebuild all of the univentilators in this middle school.
What about new?
We, the original number that was in there was $2 million.
Oh, okay.
And my question to Carl and to Wayne was, why are we spending $2 million on brand new univentilators when we're going to spend $20 million on a new middle school? That didn't make sense. So if we were going to maintain the idea of the $20 million for the new middle school, let's get by till we get the new thing. But if the middle school doesn't come to pass, then we would have to revamp that and start doing new. It's interesting because we fought the univent battle in middle school in Saugus, and we rebuilt most of them, and I don't know whether you've seen it in the Globe, but they are catching fire periodically now, and so they're not things, you know, when they get old, they have to be dealt with, there's no question about it, and so we're thinking positively, we're saying, we're gonna have a new middle school here before long, so let's just coax the univentilators for as long as we can, but if the new middle school doesn't come to pass, we'd have to revamp that.
Okay, and we have those numbers.
Yes.
Yes,
So
and that was a whole new system.
So how much was that, 2 million, you said?
That's
Yes.
new boilers, new hot water systems, new pneumatic
The number 25,
vacuum-
Jerry.
Yeah, 25.
vacuum devices.
But that'd be 2 million for a whole new system rather than 100,000 just to
Right.
keep it working for another
Yes.
year or two until we get a new facility.
Well,
Right.
to be,
It ties in with the whole.
it's more than just keep them. I don't want to insinuate, Mel, that they're not working now. This would make a market improvement in an average functioning.
Well, but Wayne did
program.
report that there
Yes.
were not dangerous issues, but
Right.
there are issues with air quality at the middle school. This would correct
Yes.
those issues for a
Right.
short term.
Yes, and the new one will do that and provide an efficiency.
Oh, this would, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, I just want to make sure that we have the numbers, so when we come to market the new school plan, we have some real cost comparisons, but new to new. It's a great look.
Yep.
And I'd also add, because of the fact we have an HVAC technician on board, the cost of outsourcing this was about $250,000. But this, we have an outstanding HVAC personnel on board that can do, so it'd be free labor. And
Okay.
so this
So
is one of
leave
the
25
one of the
on
many
this.
benefits of this particular issue that we have.
Okay.
Moving down to number 28, as you can see, that was, at the time this large capital was last updated, we were talking a renovated middle school.
Right.
So we chose the $20 million number at that time. And then we moved down to number 29, which is the replacement of all of the glass here in the middle school. Right now you have single pane aluminum framed, and this would replace the entire building with double pane, thermopane type windows that would provide a lot of energy efficiency and warmer rooms. So again, another example of what Jerry calls the need to update. Yes, sir.
On that item, is there any federal money available for the energy savings component of that?
Something, I know that we would receive, this does include matching money that the RMLD would throw into the pot. RMLD being Reading Municipal Light
Yeah,
Department.
I'm thinking there's all kinds of energy credits coming out for individuals, for their homes, for providing more energy efficient windows, doors, insulation and all that. I'm just wondering if we could get any federal money that would maybe offset part of this.
We submitted these projects, and that was for federal money, wasn't it?
Well, there's an energy study committee that has
Right.
looked through all town bill. That's a different question, but let me answer that one first. The energy study committee came back and basically provided us what the payback period is for a host of energy improvements, from windows to univents to to fluorescent lighting fixtures.
So
and,
that wasn't for submission for grants, I thought that was.